Well, let me add my welcome to the one that you've already had. It's wonderful to welcome you here to the Ministry Centre. Welcome as well online. Thank you, Brandon and Nathan, for blessing us and serving us over these couple of days. We're so grateful for you. We're thinking in these plenary sessions about growing gospel leaders together and having a little bit of a look at some aspects of our union values as well that connect in very direct ways with growing gospel leaders. And I thought I would start by asking you all a question. What is it that really grabs you? What is it that really thrills your heart? What do you enjoy doing a great deal? What do you particularly delight in? It's going to vary for each of us, isn't it? Maybe, I don't know, you're into activities, sports, and for you it's downhill skiing or skydiving or something a little bit like wingsuit jumping. Have you seen that? That looks majorly scary, doesn't it? Wingsuit jumping. Or maybe it's something less risky, like walking in a thunderstorm, or walking along the beach as the waves really crash in. What is it that grabs you? What is it that thrills you? What is it that makes you feel really, really alive? It might be music, if you're not into activities or walking too much. It might be Andrew Peterson and his creativity and his music. If it's not Andrew Peterson, it might be Antonio Vivaldi. I don't know. What is it that grabs you and sustains you? Because as human beings, we are wired, aren't we, for glory. We are wired for something that really tastes, for that sense of being truly alive. Don't you detect that deep longing in your own heart for that kind of glory, for that kind of life? And people will go to all sorts of crazy lengths to secure that. They will look in all sorts of different places until they actually find it. Sometimes looking in places that are really, really not that helpful at all. But the human heart longs for life, doesn't it? You're allowed to talk to me a little bit. It longs for glory. As we're going to see, we're going to think about just what kind of glory it is that really satisfies, what it is that our hearts are really longing for. One of those places that is really not helpful to go for true life is the glory that comes from people, is the approval that comes from other people. And that can be a bit of a pull, can't it? Especially in different kinds of ministry. But when you dig just a little bit deeper into that and think about what is going on, it's just another way, isn't it, of trying to find the things that we think will secure life for us. You know, if they really like me, if they really value me, then it will go well for me and I'll have what I need. I'll have the kind of stuff that I need for life, for true life. And if you dig just a little bit deeper still, isn't it often a deep desire for acceptance and for love that is going on there? Can I ask you, what is it that you look to? What is it you're looking to at the moment to lift you up? One really well-known Christian leader says the stage and the spotlights. We don't have any spotlights, do we? That's good. The stage and the spotlights are a dangerous place spiritually. The question is, what kind of glory is it that our hearts really love? What kind of glory is it, can I ask you, that we are looking to lift us up? What kind of glory are we really living for? Because during the last 5 years, or I guess even longer, we keep hearing, don't we, of Christian leaders who in some sense have been lifted up, have some kind of platform, some kind of stage. They're well known for a while. And then, so incredibly sadly, it's revealed that their inner world, their heart, is anything but experiencing true glory. In fact, it is empty and it's inglorious. Where do we find the glory that we are really longing for? Our first and primary value at Union is delighting in God, delighting in who he is. And that includes, doesn't it, seeing and being captivated by his glory. And remarkably, receiving that kind of glory from him. We're going to see that in John 17 verse 22. It's just astonishing. So I've got two headings for you. 2, not 3. It's quite warm. And the first one is glory that surprises. Glory that surprises. John's gospel leads us deep into the glory of God. It leads us deep into seeing and knowing and receiving God's heart towards you and me. And there's a little phrase related to the glory of God that stands out in the first half of the gospel. And it's this phrase, lifted up. That has you thinking, doesn't it, of exaltation, of glorification. And we're told repeatedly, Jesus says repeatedly, that he's going to be, as the Son of Man, lifted up. Well, quite what does that mean? The first time it comes is John 3 verses 13 and 14. And Jesus says, no one has ascended into heaven except he who descended from heaven, the Son of Man. Me, Jesus is saying, the Son of Man. And as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him may have, do you remember? Eternal life. Yeah? That true life. That glorious life. That thing that I put it to you, your heart is really longing for. And the key to it, Jesus says, is looking to him, seeing who he is, and believing in him, trusting him person to person. That little phrase, lifted up, comes again in John 8:28 now, where Jesus says to the people that he's speaking to, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am God's name for himself in Exodus. And that I do nothing on my own authority, but I speak just as the Father taught me. In other words, as we listen to the words of Jesus this afternoon, we are hearing also the words of the Father. The words of the Father and the Son, the words of God himself. And that little phrase, lifted up, is a phrase that the prophet Isaiah uses as well when he sees the glory of Jesus. Do you remember that? It's in Isaiah 52:13. When Isaiah sees the glory of the promised Davidic king, the glory of the suffering servant, do you remember? End of Isaiah 52 and Isaiah 53. When Isaiah sees the glory of this same one, this anointed king, who's both going to rule and who serves his people. That's the kind of glory that our God has. And I'm just going to read to you from the Septuagint Greek of Isaiah 52:13. I just thought I'd work that in a little bit. You see it in the Hebrew as well. But translation of the Septuagint says, behold, my servant will be wise and he will be lifted up, and it's exactly the same verb as the one that you get all the way through John's Gospel. My servant will be lifted up and here you see the link to glory, glorified exceedingly. But it's a glory that surprises. It's a strange kind of glory. It's not the kind of glory that human beings, when they first come into this world, are kind of wired to to go after. We think we're going to get glory somewhere else. But this glory, it's the glory of one, you read in the next verse of Isaiah 52, verse 14, who has a marred appearance. Do you remember? An appearance that is without glory from men. And then in John 12, we're going to dig into John 12 if you'd like to open it, or maybe scroll down to it nowadays. And in John 12 verse 38, John quotes from the very next verse in Isaiah. That is Isaiah 53 verse 1. And he says, Lord, who has believed what he heard from us, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? John is commenting on the unbelief of many of the people around Jesus at the time. In other words, John is saying to us, look a little harder. Make sure that you don't miss the glory of the one who is God's own arm, who is, in fact, the glory of God. Make sure that you don't miss the only real glory, the only weighty glory, the only thing of real substance, the only thing, I put it to you, that can really satisfy your heart. Look at Jesus. Well, we're going to dig into John 12, starting at verse 20, of all places. And we read there, it's the time of the Passover feast. It's just before the Passover feast. We're in Jerusalem. It's just before the Passover and Jesus' crucifixion. And we read verse 20 of John 12. Now among those who went up to worship at this feast were some Greeks. So these came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, and asked him, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. And Philip went and told Andrew, and Andrew and Philip went and told Jesus. And then Jesus' reply is rather unexpected. Jesus says to them, the hour has come for me, the Son of Man, to be glorified. The whole of John's Gospel builds towards what Jesus calls his hour. This hour when he's going to be glorified. In other words, Jesus is saying to you and me that there is a time and a place where we can look and see his radiance, his goodness, his glory in all its astonishing beauty. And he says to us right at the end of John 12, actually, if you've seen me, Jesus, then you've seen the Father. So Jesus is saying there is a time and a place, there is an hour where you can look and see just what the Father is like, just what the Son is like, where you can understand what this thing, the glory of God, is really all about. Well, what is he talking about? What is this time and place? What is this hour? Well, he goes on and says, verse 24 of John 12, truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. This hour is Jesus' self-giving of himself on the cross for us. This hour is the eternal Son in the flesh being lifted up and doing everything that is needed to meet us in our deepest predicament. And so as you see Jesus there, you see one who loves you to such an extent that he moved heaven to earth, held nothing back, and gave everything because he wants you to be with him. He wants you to be close to him. Just carrying on in verse 27, Jesus says, now is my soul troubled. You see what it involved for him? Now is my soul troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. But it's for this purpose that I've come to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Jesus is praying that the Father will so endow him and strengthen him for his ministry of the cross that people will see there the astonishing love of God. The astonishing glory of God. In fact, the glory of God is this love that goes out. You know, quite often when we think about glory, we think, don't we, about almost about something that is, you know, the arrow pointing up. No, it's the arrow pointing down. The glory of God goes out. The glory of God is this Jesus who was lifted up there for you and for me. Father, glorify your name in what I'm about to do. And then a voice comes from heaven. I have glorified it in you, my son, and I will glorify it again, even more now as this hour, this critical hour approaches. And the crowd that stood there and heard it said that it had thundered. And others said, an angel has spoken to him. But Jesus answered, this voice has come for your sake, not mine, that you might understand what you're looking at as I am lifted up. Now is the judgment of this world in this hour. Now will the ruler of this world be cast out. And I, here's this phrase again, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself. You see, the glory of God goes out from Jesus on the cross, and it draws people to a love that captivates and thrills and that satisfies you in a way that nothing else can. So you see Jesus there lifted up for you. You see the radical love of God that is determined to do all that is necessary to win you back. You see the radical love of God that is determined to draw near to you, to stand in your shoes for you. He's determined to meet you where you are in your brokenness and deepest need, right? And this is the eternal Son doing this. The one into whose hands the Father has entrusted everything. And he's lifted up in that way for us. This glory that is not worried about coming all the way down to rescue. This glory that is determined to serve and to bless and to go low no matter what the cost. As you see Jesus there, this glory that looks you in the eye and says, this is how much you matter to me. This glory, this light that dethrones the devil, that casts out the ruler of this world. This glory and light that robs sin of its power over our lives. This glory and this light that shines in the darkness and brings life as we put our trust in him. You see, just in the very place that you would think would be about shame, when we look, we see the thing that is the most valuable, the most glorious, the most captivating. This kind of love that God has for you and for me personally and for us together. Isn't it good to live in a cosmos ruled by this kind of God, by this Jesus? Isn't that good? Doesn't that give you confidence? Doesn't that give you hope? Doesn't that spur you on to what he's preparing for us? It's a glory that surprises. And one of the main things that surprises about it is that it goes out. This is not a God who is somehow selfish or needing attention. This is the God who has everything and overflows with this self-giving glory and beauty and love and desire to draw near to you and to be close to you. Glory that surprises. And secondly, I've already thought about this quite a bit. Glory that serves and loves. Let me ask you, what do you long to see happening in your own heart as a gospel leader or a trainee leader, if you think of yourself more in that way and you're a little bit earlier on? What do you see longing to happen in your heart as a follower of Jesus over the next few days, over the next few weeks, over the next few months? What do you think would be really glorious? What do you long to see happening in the teams where you serve? What do you long to see happening in your local church or your small group, in the ministry where you serve, whether that be church or parachurch, both? Every time you hear about this love of Christ, it works a little bit deeper into your soul, doesn't it? And I don't know about you, but it has me longing to love more that way. Doesn't it have you longing to do that? Even when it costs. You know, when I see that he loves you in that way, it has me longing to love you better. When I see Jesus lifted up like that, it has me wanting to worship him and love him with more of my heart. That's what is really glorious. When we serve in that way, when we love in that way, when we worship in that way. That's what really satisfies. That is what is at the heart of real life. And I don't know what that then has you thinking. You might be thinking, well, yeah, I long to do that, but where are the resources going to come from for me to lay down my life and follow Jesus and love in the way that he does? And there's an astonishing promise, which I mentioned earlier on in John 17, it's verse 22, where Jesus is praying to the Father, do you remember? And he says, the glory that you, Father, have given me. Well, that's a glory being given through all eternity since before the foundation of the world, isn't it? And Jesus says, he promises you, he says, this is a fact. The glory that you, Father, have given me, I have given to them who are trusting in me, that they may be one, even as we, the Father and the Son, are one. I, Jesus, in them, and you, Father, in me. In other words, the Father glorifies the Son and pours this kind of love upon the Son through all eternity, and the Son pours it out on us individually and together so that we might share it with one another. How good is that? And so we don't need to fear that we won't have the resources to do that, because Jesus has promised us right here in John 17 that we will, because he will do it as we depend on him in this way and as we trust him in this way. And I want to say to you that it is only this kind of love which brings fruit in ministry. Whatever you might be doing, whether you're talking or you're helping lead some ministry or you're working with a team, John 15, it is only this kind of love. It's only when that is the wellspring of it that there will be lasting fruit, Jesus tells us. It's this kind of love that is the glorious thing. It's this kind of love that matters above everything else. And the ministry that we do is ministry from, right? I mean, in ministry, you don't always know exactly what the results are going to be, do you? And if you were going to say, you know, I'm going to do it so that it's for this, and this, you know, and these numbers and so on. No, it's not ministry primarily for, it's ministry from. It is ministry in the overflow, and we can only do it when we are, hour by hour, day by day, receiving the ministry of Christ, his love, his glory into our lives and our hearts. And that means looking at our priorities, I want to suggest to you, and our devotion and the way we use our time and the way we structure all sorts of things that I don't quite have time to go into now. But you might be asking, what does this look like in practice? What does it mean to love in the way that Christ loved you and me on the cross? What does it look like in the nitty-gritty, in the practicalities and the soil, if you like, of everyday life? And in John 13, we're running a little bit short of time, but I'm going to talk about this, I think. Jesus shows us. They're in the upper room, do you remember? And the disciples would have been reclining at the table. So they'd have been sort of laid back. And that's how they used to eat and share a meal in those days. And we're told that during the supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. And he decides to do what none of them have been willing to do at the beginning of the meal, before it, which is when it would normally have happened. And do you remember he strips aside his outer garments and he takes a towel and ties it around his waist. And you can imagine they must all have been, kind of looking around and thinking, what is happening here? And then he pours water into a basin and he comes to the first disciple. And when you think about it, to wash someone's feet and then to dry it with a towel wrapped around your waist, you probably need to kneel down, don't you? And so here's this first disciple. We don't know exactly who it was. And Jesus, the Word who was with the Father in the beginning, was with God in the beginning and was God. The one into whose hands the Father has entrusted everything is there getting soil and grime into the lines of his hands. And it's a beautiful picture, isn't it, of Jesus cleansing us, of Jesus ministering to us, of the closeness and friendship and fellowship that Jesus desires with us. Awesome. And then, as we know, Jesus comes to Peter, and Peter is concerned about hierarchies and conventions and how it's always been done before. And Jesus is concerned about genuine love and genuine service and genuine fellowship and genuine friendship with those who he ministers to. And that is Jesus' heart to you this afternoon and this week. He wants this kind of intimacy with you. And he went to the cross to win it for you so that you might enter into it fully. And Peter, of course, after a little bit of conversation that I don't have time to go into, understands that he can't share with Jesus unless he lets Jesus do this for him. He understands that he can't minister unless first he receives the ministry that only Christ can give him. And then at the end of this foot washing scene, Jesus says to them, if you know these things, now that I've shown you what this kind of loving, this kind of service, this kind of actually glorious life together, because it's sharing in the life of God, looks like, blessed are you. Blessed are you if you do them.